Hello, this is psychologist Yulia Latunenko with you, and today let's talk about trust. Is it even possible to trust people at all? Whom should we trust, and what should we trust them with? And in general, how should we approach the phenomenon of trust in people? Some people don't trust others at all, and some people trust very quickly. Today, let's discuss this topic. And as always, at the beginning of the video, I ask you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to like and leave comments with more than 7 words. So, what is trust? Throughout my life, I've had many situations where I trusted people and then deeply regretted it. But then I realized that trust is simply my choice. Trust or distrust is just a choice. But you probably need to think very, very carefully and reflect on 2 questions. Whom am I trusting? Is it someone close to me? Or is it a stranger? So think about the degree of closeness with the person I am trusting. The second question you need to ask yourself is, what exactly am I trusting? Am I trusting my feelings? Maybe my business ideas, or the PIN code to my bank card, or access to my phone. Exactly what am I trusting? These 2 questions are very important to carefully consider before you decide to trust someone. If you have recently met someone new and you really like them a lot, and you feel a very strong, almost immediate connection with this person, what they often call a match in English, well, such a coincidence. It seems to you that you've always known this person, that they feel familiar to you, like a kindred spirit. This often happens in interpersonal relationships, especially when romantic relationships are developing. And then the question arises, when you really like someone so much, when you feel deep down that this is your person, you want so much to trust this person quickly, you want to believe everything they say, all their promises, but if you very quickly find yourself in a state where you want to trust someone you barely know, you risk getting into trouble. In order to truly trust someone, you still need to take some time, carefully observe the person, and notice the subtle details of their behavior, the small details in their actions, in their words, and understand just how much their actions actually match their words. Trusting just words is very careless. So pay more attention to what a person does in relation to you. Give more importance to a person's actions, deeds, and behavior, not their words. Or sometimes the opposite happens when you meet people you don't know yet, right at the very beginning of getting acquainted, and you start suspecting the person of every possible and impossible sin. You display behavior that's a bit paranoid. You tend to suspect that everyone around you is hostile toward you, that they're all bad people, and that no one at all can truly be trusted. That's the other extreme. And most likely, both the first case and the second case are actually symptoms of infantilism, of an immature psyche. Because in the first case, when a person clings to anyone, not knowing them, trusting them completely without any reason, it's about us looking for someone to fall in love with very quickly, someone onto whom we project the image of good parents. And all of this is the result of not having good parents in childhood after all. There are childhood traumas. If you trust strangers recklessly, without thinking, without any real basis, there is also the position of a paranoid person who suspects everyone, who thinks that everyone around is an enemy, that they will be betrayed, that everyone is deceitful, and that nothing can be trusted to anyone. Such a person does not let anyone get close or form intimate relationships because they are convinced that people are enemies. Why is this so? Why did this happen? Why did such a position form in this person? Because in childhood, very strict, harsh methods of upbringing were used on this person. Most likely, such a child was betrayed by their parents. Trusting their promises, relying on their promises was probably impossible because they didn't keep them. Most likely the parents deceived such a child, often lied, distorted facts, and the child simply lost trust in their parents. And for a child, parents are their whole world. And so with this model, the child grows up and what they felt in their relationship with their parents, they project onto the world of other people. That is, they have a certain model, like tracks that the train runs on. And the person cannot get off these tracks because they are confined within the limits of their childhood trauma. And these two extreme positions are still incorrect. They most often lead to suffering, because in the first case you get stuck very strongly, you go into fusion, and in the second case you take on a counter-dependent position, a kind of paranoid hostile stance. So all of this is the result of childhood traumas, and these childhood traumas continue to affect your life. Let's return again to those two polar positions regarding trust and distrust. And if in the first case a person becomes a victim of scammers and people who are, as they say, dishonest, then in the second case the person rather displays a kind of toxicity toward those around them. Because such a person does not realize that they themselves cannot be sincere, that their suspicion, their paranoid thoughts, their hostility, they project and attribute all of this to other people. In other words, in reality, such a person is themselves hostile and they project this onto the outside world. That is, all people are bad and you have to be wary of them. Such a person builds reinforced concrete barriers between themselves and the world, through which no one can penetrate into their life. Of course, such people are still people, and all people are social beings. We all want to be in relationships with others. And people like this, who are suspicious and a bit paranoid, they also want to have close relationships. But this kind of attitude, this childhood trauma, prevents them from forming close bonds and leads them to total loneliness in life. Let's look at another mistake when it comes to trust and distrust. If a person has betrayed you even just once, lied to you even a single time, deceived you in some way, or has done something mean, cruel, or treacherous towards you, then, to be completely honest, I truly think you shouldn't expect that this won't happen over and over again in your life at any point in the future, in your relationship with this person. I think that giving a person like that the benefit of the doubt is a mistake, because this is already, well, a certain value system of a person who believes that it is normal to betray, to deceive, to be treacherous towards someone close. So don't fool yourself with illusions that such people will somehow change and won't repeat what they've done. That's why I still recommend not trusting such people and being cautious. But you might ask me, what should you do if infidelity happens in a couple that has been together for a long time? Should you try to preserve the relationship, or should you end it? What should you do when that distrust is already there? When the pot has already cracked and that crack isn't going anywhere, that's it. These thoughts about the betrayal won't go away because it has already happened. Here, in principle, you really need to approach your choice consciously. Should you live with that distrust toward the person and keep waiting for another stab in the back, or should you end the relationship after all? Because if someone has betrayed and deceived you once, they will do it again and again, many times over. Well, and there's another interesting question here in this topic that I want to pose for people who actually seek personal growth and who are at a fairly high level in their own development. Those who know how to reflect, who are able to look at themselves critically, are you yourself the kind of person who can be trusted? Do you ever justify your betrayals, your lies, by saying that you did it, for example, for for protective reasons? So take a look at yourself and give yourself a sincere and honest answer. Would you trust someone like yourself with something very intimate, something very valuable? I think that if your answer to yourself is no, if you say to yourself that you wouldn't trust someone like that, even if they were your friend, then this answer will slightly increase your tolerance toward other people. That is, scientists have already proven that when people talk about themselves, in 90% of cases they deceive themselves and their conversation partner, because our brain tricks us and leads us into such labyrinths where we end up justifying things that we would never forgive if they were done to us. And as always at the end of this video, I remind you, give it a like if you found this video useful, and if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to my channel and leave comments that are more than 7 words long, because for some reason YouTube doesn't count short ones.